recording.
Oh, good.
Good.
That recorded me, did it? Going,
and the donk of your glass.
Excellent. Good. Well, we're nothing if not authentic. Hello. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Good, mate. I'm good. I'm tired.
Good,
but
man.
I'm good.
Yeah, so you said all day.
Yeah, I'm not one to moan. But,
No, doesn't sound like it.
I have been moaning a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you're moaning to me, and now you're moaning to the people.
But I'm very excited.
Yeah, me too.
Episode 1, man.
Episode 1.
Episode 1.
This is where it's at.
It is. Welcome, by the way, to Comusician, the podcast where a comedian and a musician meet up to talk about the world of comedy, the world of music, the world, I guess.
Absolutely. And I'm really surprised that you went a comedian and a musician, because normally you make a joke out of the musician part.
Well, the thing is, I do normally say ish when you're a musician, but you are a musician, man. You're much more talented than me.
Well, I mean,
when it comes to music.
So's a table.
Very true, very true. Oops, there's a little vibration there from my phone, so there's a little note to self. Keep that one tucked away. But yeah, so this is it. This is really exciting. This is the first episode of the rest of our lives, and
no pressure.
No pressure at all. So we ought to kind of, I guess, reveal what it's all about.
What we're doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So. The kind of premise of the pod is that myself, Fitz, a comedian.
Myself, Sam, a musician.
We didn't even practice that. That was great.
Not even a bit. There wasn't even a nod in the room.
We're going to meet up every week, and we're going to talk about stuff. The beauty of what we both do is they're both kind of performing arts. That's quite a wanky term, but that's kind of what we do. We both travel to gigs. I might have to bleep that bit because I don't know if necessarily you want to be an explicit.
Let's see where the podcast takes us.
Let's see where the podcast takes us. Yeah, but yeah. So our kind of thinking behind it was, and we were having a drink when we were at a comedy gig, one of the gigs that I run. And Sam was doing sound, and what a sound guy you are. But mate, have you eaten chips?
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
you bought chips and didn't even say mother.
I've been here for an hour, man, waiting for you. So
unbelievable.
Yeah, I bought chips.
The cheek of it. So yeah, sorry, listener, I was distracted by an empty bowl of chips and not the prospect of no more chips arriving. But never mind, I'm fine. Broadly fine. So yeah, what this is all about is. We had a beer and we were thinking about a podcast. It's something I've wanted to do for ages.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I've always wanted to talk about music to people.
Nice.
And yeah, this is it. This is perfect because we were at the Firehouse one night, like Fitz says, at a comedy gig, and we were just like, we both at the same time pretty much went, let's start a podcast.
Yeah.
And within about 10 minutes.
And I remember because we were like, well, I'm a comedian and you're a musician. There must be a way of kind of merging the two.
There was, yeah.
And then Comusician was born.
Absolutely.
And yeah, within like 10 minutes, as you say, we had pretty much everything set up.
The whole
social
thing.
Twitter, email, all of that done. Just in case anyone else had that idea at that exact second.
And no idea of our first episode. And we we still don't really, still now.
No, very much. But so what's going to happen is, every week we're going to talk about a different theme. So like I said, the world of comedy and the world of kind of music performance are vaguely similar. You know, we both travel to gigs, we both get on stage, we both hope there's people there to listen, and
it's very often not.
On occasion there is, and while that's cool, there are obviously similarities. There are also kind of big differences. So for example, the way I might prepare for a gig might be totally different to the way that you prepare for a gig.
Yeah, and the way that people heckle you on stage might be completely different, and they will be completely different because nobody has the time to shout jokes at me when I'm on stage.
You can't hear them.
They just throw stuff.
No, exactly.
It's brutal.
I can imagine, mate. I've done a couple of gigs. There's something called a Gong Show, and the Comedy Store in London. They have basically the premise of a gong show. Comedians listening will be familiar with these. Some of you will have done them, and some of you will have correctly avoided them. But basically, it's the premise of the Gong Show is, you go on stage and you get up to 5 minutes, and if you last 5 minutes, then at the Comedy Store you get a hallelujah and like you beat the gong. However, if you are rubbish,
that was beautiful.
Thanks. If you're rubbish, then you can get gonged off. And mate, I'll never forget when I did it. There was about 400 people in the Comedy Store. I'd barely been to London, let alone to perform in London, and I was on 4th. And the only way I can describe it is like, you know the film Gladiator?
I do.
Where they're in the gladiatorial arena and everyone's just baying for blood.
Yep.
They just want them dead. That was what it was like for me and for all the other acts. And the first person did all right. The second person was terrible.
Really?
The third person, just before me, took the mick out of the second person, which they hated. So they were literally just like, woo, like baying for blood. And then I go on, and the way it works at the Comedy Store is you get the people in the audience have a red card.
Yeah.
And they put it up in the air, and if you get 3 red cards, that's it, you're out.
3 red cards.
And I got a red card after about 10 seconds, and I was like, oh, this is not going to go well. And fortunately, I kind of fairly quickly, Man United had played Liverpool the day before, and Steven Gerrard went on as a sub, and then got sent off after about 45 seconds. And I went, that was a really quick red card. Mate, what are you, Steven Gerrard? And fortunately, people laughed, and so I kind of managed to carry on. But I got to 4 minutes 58 seconds, man, and I got gonged off. 4 minutes 58, yeah, and I knew it was close, and yeah, I got to the end and I was just gutted.
Yeah, I bet. That's, you know what, actually, that story was brilliant, and I want to hear a lot more about the gong. And in fact, I think we should give the listeners a look into that performance, and you should try and remember it. But
what material?
Yeah.
Oh God, mate.
But what I'm most excited about this podcast is learning stuff about comedy. Mm-hmm. Before 3 minutes ago, I'd never heard of a gong.
Nice.
So I'm really excited because every
and you're
time...
a musician and you hadn't heard of a gong, mate.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's not something casual that I'd look at. But I kind of watch you and I watch the other guys that are up there, and every time I'm up there and I'm just watching, I'm like, I'd love to give that a go. I don't know what I talk about, and I have no idea how to be a comedian.
Yeah.
But I would love to be one.
Mate, there's literally nothing stopping you.
I'm not that funny.
Well, some would say that you can do comedy without being funny. You can give it a go. That's what got me into it, actually, to be honest, is I went to a few gigs and there were comedians on who were rubbish, and I was like, mate, I could definitely go on stage for 5 minutes and not get a laugh, and I could. And you were just that
you're just that brave about it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's interesting though, because I'd like to do a performance of music as well, man. I've got a guitar, and
have you?
I've got a guitar, yeah.
What guitar have you got?
I don't know. Like
not that the listener cares about that.
A Fender. It's like an acoustic.
A Fender?
Yeah.
Oh, so you didn't go cheap?
Well, I did, yeah, because it was like probably fourth hand. But yeah, no. So I've got a Fender. I haven't picked it up for ages, actually. That's
amazing.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
What?
Well, we're here talking about comedy and music. Wouldn't it be cool if, like, a year down the line... Mate, this is an idea, actually. Wouldn't it be cool if a year down the line we did like a live podcast, a gig, and you do your first ever comedy gig, and I do my first ever like performance gig, like singing a song or whatever? That would be amazing. That
would be so good. And I mean, anybody can be funny within a year of preparation, right?
In theory, I can help you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Why don't we use the podcast? Oh, mate, what a brilliant idea.
That is a brilliant idea.
Let's do it. All right, so
we've just come up with a theme for the actual pod.
This is the reason why we're doing it. Yeah.
Oh, mate. Okay, cool. All right. Well, so the date today is the 2nd of March. So, mate, that's quite a good idea, because we can have episodes where we kind of talk comedy, craft, jokes.
Yeah.
We can have brief episodes where we listen to me strumming along trying to learn guitar.
I don't know if anybody wants to hear that, but they will at some point. In a year's time, they will.
Mate, that's okay.
We'll do lessons off the mic. I'll give you guitar lessons.
Well, I'll shake you. We're shaking hands now. We're shaking hands, which for listeners of the podcast is very much just for us.
That was the wettest handshake I've ever had. As well.
We had to kind of lean across the table. Oh, cool. Well, that's very exciting.
That's really exciting.
Nice.
I'm good for that, and we'll do it. So this podcast is being recorded in lots of different places. Currently, we're at the Ship in Exeter.
I think this is a really cool place.
This might be it.
But we found it very impromptu last minute.
Yeah, we did.
What can only be described administrative errors, not by me or by you, actually.
No,
really
absolutely. By the place that we would normally record these podcasts,
which we're not going to
been attempting to.
Yeah, we're not going to badmouth them because we love them.
Yeah, absolutely. But wow, what an amazing idea!
Yeah. Oh, wicked. Okay, cool. I'm quite excited now.
Yeah, mate.
Got my creative juices flowing.
That's so good.
Nice.
So while I'm on the kind of air of learning stuff about comedy, what made you get into it?
So I kind of alluded to it earlier, really. So basically, the kind of the thing that got me into it, I guess, was that I think I always assumed that people that did comedy had this like innate knowledge or this innate skill that you couldn't learn, you know. And I looked at Billy Connolly growing up, and then to a certain extent, you know, people like McIntyre is the obvious example. You know, it's just someone who's so kind of stratospherically successful, but even like not McIntyre level, you know, people that you see on TV, you just think, oh well, they've obviously got something. And it was only when I moved to Bath, so I grew up in Devon, but I moved to Bath and just went along to a couple of nights, and I guess kind of open mic nights. And yeah, I saw people doing stand-up in inverted commas, in that they were stood in front of people trying to make them laugh. And some of them were okay, and some of them were not. And I was like, why are they doing it and why am I not doing it, you know?
Nice, man.
So yeah, I just kind of I bought a couple of books. I just started reading about how to craft jokes and how to find material and how to do it, and then I did my first gig and wasn't rubbish. I did a little bit that I regret and will forever regret doing in my first ever gig. It just wasn't really me. Like the whole kind of notion of comedy, or part of the notion of comedy, is that you have like a persona.
Yeah.
So my persona on stage is, in theory, my not character, but you know, it's kind of who I am on stage. And when I was learning, I was in like a bit of a group workshop environment, and the vast majority of people in that group thought that I was like a bit of a lad. So they were like, oh, well, that's your persona. So I kind of, very ill-advised, went on stage my first ever gig trying to be a bit of a lad, you know, kind of like think Lee Nelson, but not as chavvy and not as funny.
I get that. Yeah, absolutely, because you're not a lad. I've known you for 18 months now or so, I wouldn't put you as a lad.
Not a lad.
Not a lad.
I'm a lad.
You enjoy a drink, but you're not a lad.
Yeah, I'm not a lad.
Yeah.
I don't know what a lad is, but yeah. So that was it really, and
nice.
I did the first gig, absolutely flipping loved it, and that was it. I was hooked.
That's really interesting, because that's exactly what I just described to you as to why I wanted to give it a go.
Okay, nice.
Just standing up in front of people going, I'd like to go at that.
Yeah.
Like just admiring them up there. So
yeah.
Oh mate,
and
that's
there
so cool.
There is nothing like it, and comedies are strange in some ways. Kind of, I call it an art form, and I guess it is an art form, but it's a strange pastime, because with music, you know, you can sit at home with your guitar and you can practice, and in fact that's what you've got to do. Whereas with comedy, the only way you can practice is by being on stage in front of people and trying it.
Absolutely. I guess that's the only way that you can tell that a joke's good, is by an audience reaction. And I'm presuming you'll have jokes in the bank that will work with one audience and work with another, so it's even harder to judge.
That's a really good point. And I mean, one of the things that I've kind of learned as I've been doing it, and so I've been gigging now for 6-7 years, and when I kind of started it, I had my 5 minutes or my 10 minutes of material, and that was it. I didn't have anything else to fall back on, so it didn't matter whether I was gigging to a stag do or like a WI meeting, they were getting the same shit, like 100%. Whereas when you do a gig for a stag do and your material is grandpa's birthday party, you know, you suddenly realise, I'm going to get torn apart here. And so you have to kind of progress.
Cool, man. Yeah, it's interesting, because we kind of, in the world of music, just to make the first link of our series, it's very similar. We'll do some gigs that will be in a pub garden on a Saturday afternoon, and we go in with our normal set, which is quite heavy blues rock, where we're not screaming at the audience, but we're not being gentle with them. And it doesn't quite work as well as it will on the Saturday night when you're, down at the underground bar screaming at kids that want to hear that kind of music. So
it's playing to your audience, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess it's knowing who your audience
exactly
are.
And it's something that you've got to learn over time, I think. So cool.
What about you, man? What got you into, and tell me a little bit about your kind of musical history? Because you mentioned there that you play in a band, but tell the listener and remind me, because
exactly.
I was only vaguely listening.
Yeah. Well, I was really lucky as a kid. My parents introduced me to a lot of music. From anywhere, from Elvis to kind of really old blues songs to a lot of country. God, Dad still listens to a lot of country. But they got me into music so much. And then when I was about 12 or 13, my sister's ex-partner was selling his old bass guitar. And I thought, you know what, let's do it. 80 quid I gave him for a bass guitar and an amplifier. And he kind of sent me on my way, and I got it, didn't really touch it that much, and then was just like, nah, let's do it, let's learn. So I learned a couple of Elvis songs.
Nice.
And then it just progressed.
So when you say you learned a couple of Elvis songs, on the 6 string? Or?
No, on a bass.
Okay.
Yeah, so he told me the bass.
What songs?
That's a good question. I want to say Hound Dog was definitely the first song I ever learned on a bass.
Nice.
And then away from that, maybe Burning Love. It was Burning something, and Elvis had a lot of burning loins, so who knows which one it was. And then from that, I just played at home for the next maybe 6 years or so until I hit college. Then I played in a really, really bad college band.
So what you're saying is that during your teenage years, you spent a lot of time in your room alone practicing?
Yes,
right. Okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Which
Cool.
is what most teenagers do, but mine was with a bass.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So and then I kind of took that to college and was in a little ska band, which didn't go anywhere, to the point where we didn't even give ourselves a name. And then in my local town, a couple of my friends from school, we made a band called Pencil, and we did basically Paramore covers, but with no singer, so it was just all instrumental.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
Again, appalling. And then
you just rub that part of history out.
And I didn't really get, although I played with bands, I didn't really
get the Pencil reference there, did you? Or if you did, you just thought it was rubbish.
I completely skirted over that, to be honest.
Witty,
I was 2 steps ahead trying to work on what I'm going to say next.
A little insight into what you're going to get there, a little bit of banter.
And a little bit of idiot missing it. And then I guess my next steps from there were I went back to the bedroom bass guitar playing, bought a 6 string, so then started to learn acoustic guitar. And then I decided, you know what, I'm better than playing in my bedroom. I got decent. I'd play horrendously loud bass guitar in my back garden at home in a very residential area. Neighbours hated it. I loved it. And then I thought, right, let's do it. Let's join a band. So I went out looking and found a guy who auditioned me for a band called Got Legs.
Right.
They were like a covers band. They play like Mustang Sally and stuff like that.
How many of you were in the band?
There was 7 of them.
7
Yeah,
of you,
and I did
14 legs.
Yes, that's 14 legs.
Okay,
That's very good. Yeah, nice.
You're welcome.
And I auditioned with them 3 times, and eventually I didn't get in. And it all came down to the fact that I hadn't played with a drummer long enough.
Right.
And I couldn't keep my time. I could play along to a track, fine, but when you're playing a band, timings change, and you've got to adapt to that. And I'd never had to really properly do that before.
Okay.
A couple of years later, the lead singer calls me up, Stuart. Says he's putting together he wants to just put together a blues band and go away from what he was working on.
Nice.
And that's kind of all she wrote. And now Dirty Blueprint was formed from that, and that is my band at the moment. So we're blues rock, and we just kill it.
I would like to say, actually, I'm one of the, I think similar to yourself, one of the things I'm really excited for about this pod is learning more about music. Cause, I like what I like, but I don't know much about it. There's loads of musicians I won't have heard of, and likewise there's loads of comedians that I'll be able to kind of bring you onto as well. So, very exciting. Yeah, man. Yeah, it was really cool. And, Dirty Blueprint, or you'll probably get to know them, listeners, as DB. That's just what we call them for short, because we wholeheartedly regret the name Dirty Blueprint. Do you?
Yeah, we do.
Why?
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things. At the time, we spent weeks trying to find a band name.
Right.
And I mean weeks of just constant messaging each other, phone calls between the 4 of us.
It's hard though, because that's a big, it's a big thing.
It's the biggest thing. It's the biggest part of your band is like, oh, what are you guys called? Dirty Blueprint. It doesn't.
You got to say it with confidence, though.
Yeah, you do, and we do now.
Well, yeah.
But it took a long time to get to the confidence level. But where it came from was we really wanted to be called Blueprint because we're kind of blues rock.
Right.
And we wanted to kind of take...
I'm a real fan of newspapers.
I'm obviously a real fan of newspapers. No, but... Nice, there's another quip for you listeners. We wanted to kind of, take blues back to its essence, but add in a real lot of modern stuff to it and kind of give it some real guts. And then turns out the Blueprint is a rapper in America.
Right.
Not the kind of person, by the looks of him, that you want to try and steal his name. He's probably got 9 mil in his pocket.
Nice.
So then we chucked Dirty on the front of it, because every time that one of us would come up with a riff, we would say, mate, that sounds so dirty.
Right, okay.
And Dirty Blueprint was formed.
Nice.
Which was like, yeah, we got a name.
Yeah.
6 months down the line, we're like, yeah, we got a name. But, you know, Dave Grohl regrets calling his band Foo Fighters. So
Well,
if he can regret that, we can regret Dirty Blueprint.
yeah. And I think they've done all right, haven't they? Really.
They're doing okay.
You've got a Foo Fighters emblem emblazoned on your arm.
I do, absolutely. Yeah.
So Sam's got a real interesting tattoo. Let's talk about your tattoo, man. Because
Okay.
so when I first met you, that was one of the first things I saw.
Oh, nice.
Which and it's really cool. It's really cool. We'll get a photo. It might have to be a couple of photos, and we'll put it on the Comusician socials.
Let's do it.
Where can we find those, by the way, Sam?
We can find
Just
those.
Seamless link into
It's
that.
at Comusician Pod.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
It is.
No matter what social you're using, and we'll put it on all of them.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, although MySpace is one that we haven't activated our Comusician Pod
Bebo. Do you
yet.
remember Bebo?
But we will. I never really got into Bebo, to be
Too old
honest.
for Bebo?
Too old for Bebo. What an odd sentence. I guess I probably was. I mean, I don't even know what it was. But the thing is, I was making waves on MySpace while you were just... I was going to come up with something really horrible then, but I don't want to. I was making waves on MySpace while you
That's
were...
comedian for you got nothing right there, isn't it? Save me, Sam.
I'm a comedian that had very little sleep last night. My little girl was not up for sleeping last night.
I'm sorry.
She's this is very boring, but yeah. So I've got a little girl who's nearly 2, but she loves sucking her fingers. That's like her comfort thing, and she's full of snot. So she's trying to go to sleep. She's sucking her fingers to try and sleep, and then she wakes up screaming because she can't breathe. So yeah, I had a bit of a late night with a gig, and then got back and had to deal with that. So
Oh, bless you.
you'll, for every kind of amazing, that's 14 legs in your band, there will be 1 or 2 of those where I'm just like, I can't talk now. Which is fine. You've got to take the rough with the smooth, right?
At the end of the day, it's the rough with the smooth that makes a good podcast, isn't it?
Well, I'm hoping so.
The listeners are here for the rough. Let's face it.
And there'll be plenty of rough.
Absolutely.
Nice, man.
You're tuning in to Sound of Comusician Podcast.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we'll get your tattoo on, but
Yes.
tell us, describe it to the listeners.
I've basically, on my left arm, I've got the biggest regret of my life, which is the worst tattoo you've ever seen.
It's not even 1 tattoo, it's actually 3.
When I was 18, I must have been a day over 18, and I was just like, let's go get a tattoo. So I got 3 guitar plectrums on my left arm,
All in one go.
all in one go, and they are awful.
Wow.
Because it's not so much the fact that they're plectrums. We're not putting this on the socials. I'm just going to lightly describe it. It's because in one of them there's a beach scene. In the other one there's a really bad guitar. In one of them there's some kind of tribal heart thing. And then there's some words on there. We don't need to say them.
We do.
Okay,
We
cool.
do.
So it's live your dreams, not your life. Because apparently you don't need to live your life, according to 18-year-old Sam. I will say, though, I did go to the tattoo artist and say, I want that, but without the words. And he went, nah, mate. They're really cool, in a complete stoner voice. And I was just like, okay, cool, yeah. I gave into peer pressure.
That tattooist literally doesn't remember you. And doesn't remember doing that.
He's got no idea of that morning, let alone.
It's on you forever and ever.
So what I needed to do, I needed to redeem myself. And the idea of this tattoo on my left arm was to kind of put out the fact that I love music.
Okay.
And to kind of embed that in my skin.
And advertise the fact.
And advertise the fact. And what I've done on my right arm is I've done like what would you call it? Like a
tribute piece.
A tribute piece,
kind of like a collage.
100%. Yeah, a tribute piece to all of the artists and the bands that have ever got me playing music, wanted me to learn something new, have just got me inspired. There's folks like, you've heard me talk about Elvis already, Jimi Hendrix, Rage Against the Machine, Foo Fighters, Real Big Fish, Prince. There's loads on here, and I will go up. I've just got to be brave enough to do the inside bit of your elbow, which I'm not quite there yet. But
I'll go with you, mate.
I got that, and
we get a Comusician logo tattooed on us each.
100%. Absolutely. Well, let's see how many of these episodes we can put out first, shall we?
If we get to let's go crazy. If we get to 10,000 subscribers,
All right.
Because that's quite a lot.
10,000 subscribers.
If we ever get to 10,000 subscribers, we will live stream us both getting the Comusician tattoo.
Sounds like a plan.
That's a bold claim.
Yeah.
And now I've said it, I both really want that to happen and also really don't want that to happen.
All right, no, let's do it.
No, I do.
Let's
do it. Cool.
10,000 subs, and we will tattoo ourselves with the Comusician logo.
Yeah, nice.
That I designed in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
On pages on my Mac.
Don't tell that. Don't reveal behind the magician's cloth.
But yeah, no, the tattoo, I love it, and now I'm really, really worried because I think it's going to get spoiled by a Comusician logo. But we'll work that out later on down the line.
You don't have to do it on that arm. You can do it somewhere else.
Okay, I'll probably do it on my left arm because that's a write-off now and then.
On the subject of tattoos, actually, this is genuinely true. Do you ever see the program Tattoo Fixers?
I do.
So there's a few episodes that spring to mind, but there's one. There was a guy who was a Liverpool fan, and he had a very famous kind of Liverpool saying tattooed on his leg. And he was a motorbiker, and he had a crash. And anyway, long story short, they had to amputate part of his leg. He's fine, but they had to amputate part of his leg. And so he went on Tattoo Fixes because what was on his leg basically was just a liver bird, and it just said, "You'll never walk."
Oh, bless him.
Yeah, which I love.
Yeah.
And obviously I feel bad. But
yeah, absolutely.
But surely the surgeon who did that must have been like, well, let's just do it. Sorry.
Unless he's a United fan, or even worse, an Everton fan.
Oh, but he wouldn't have had that tattooed on him if he was.
That's about the amount of knowledge that I've got on football right now.
See, I'm a massive Man United fan, and we hate Liverpool. It's like in our kind of genes to hate them, but even so, and I've got friends who would kill me for even mentioning this, but there's the song "You'll Never Walk Alone." I've not been to Anfield to see it kind of in the flesh, but I've seen footage of the whole stadium singing that song, and on like big European nights, and the atmosphere is just incredible. And Liverpool at the moment are doing really, really well, which I hate. But I'm not jealous of anything because United have had a lot of success, and I've been very, very lucky to live through it. But if there was one thing, I wish Man United had like a song like that could get the whole kind of thing, the whole stadium up and Adam, as it were.
Yeah, for sure.
Up and Adam.
Go on, lad.
You can take the boy out of Devon, but you can't take the Devon out of the boy.
Absolutely. See, it's funny actually. I don't want to keep going on about football. We'll stop this very quickly.
Yes,
but I used to love football.
All right.
And you might not know about this about me, but I was a real big Middlesbrough fan. Like huge Borough fan. Like back to the stages, I used to have T-shirts with Viduka on the back, like like early 2000s when I was small. And then
just after like Ravanelli and
Juninho, the
Emerson.
other side of those guys. Yeah, you kind of got your Vidukas into your Hasselbanks, those sort of players.
Very nice.
And it was amazing, and it was great. And then they got relegated, and then it got worse, and I just gave up. And I haven't watched football since, really, other than watching England. I'll always support those lads. Don't know who any of them are. The last, and so that's it. That's my football reference. Oh, and the fact that I now listen to the Peter Crouch podcast.
Nice,
which is always good.
Good podcast.
Very good podcast.
Sure, they need a plug from us as well.
100%. Well, it's not so much a plug, but they actually have a really cool handle, and I think it's something that we should try and adopt.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard it, but it's Pass the Pod.
Pass the Pod, yeah.
So if you are liking this, I know we've railroaded this completely talking about football, but
only just started.
Well, you said it, we're 28 minutes in.
Are we?
Yeah.
28 minutes, flown by.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, if you are liking this episode of Comusician and you think, you know what, somebody else needs to hear this, go on, pass the pod. That's how we will make a living.
Yeah, definitely. And one of those things, and I'm stealing this from another great podcast, which is the Have a Word podcast, which I thoroughly recommend. It's two comedians from kind of the Manchester, Liverpool area talking nonsense, but it's hilarious nonsense. But one of the things that they kind of recommend is, if you've got like WhatsApp groups with your mates, if you've enjoyed this and you enjoy subsequent episodes, which we hope you do, then just tell your mates, pop it in a group chat and just ask people to kind of listen. The whole hope of what we're doing is that if you like comedy and you like music, then there'll be something here for you. And did you know, by the way, that comedy is, like the podcast kind of segments, different genres, comedy podcasts make up 80% of the top 200
Do they really?
Yeah, so I think it's
Wow.
good that we've got like a bit of a music angle as well. Have to try and
another angle in there.
there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good note that actually. Maybe the listeners might want to know because we both wanted to start a podcast. But what kind of podcast you listen to? What podcast made you want to create a podcast?
Really good question. So I listen to quite a lot, to be honest. So I listen to Football Weekly. I listen to like football podcasts. There's a 90s football one with Josh Widdicombe, which is very good. And then the kind of true crime. There's quite a lot of true crime stuff that I like.
Oh, there's some good true crime.
There
out
is,
there,
yeah. The Serial, the first series of Serial was brilliant.
Have you listened to the second series?
Yeah, I've listened to bits of it. It was, I don't know, it didn't kind of grab me in the same way.
See, I've only listened to the second series.
Really?
I haven't done the first series yet,
Oh my
and the
God.
second series had me.
Oh wow,
So
mate.
going through the different courtrooms, I loved it.
Oh mate, yeah. For the series, season 1. Again, we're very much plugging more or less the most famous podcasts kind of out there, but that's great.
It's what gets you into podcasts.
They are very, very good, and more kind of in a similar vibe. Something that I'd love to kind of emulate. One of my favourite pods is the Ellis James and John Robbins.
Oh, that was a good podcast. Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
so the Radio X one that they did,
Yeah.
I absolutely love that because basically it's two friends who, they're comedians and they're both very, very funny in their own right, but they're both really different.
Yeah.
So you've got kind of unique traits of each. And the podcast, what I loved about it is that it kind of evolved. So essentially it was their radio show and they kind of put it into podcast format, but it got a real following, and it was because they talked quite openly about things like mental health and the struggles that they had.
Yeah.
And John Robbins, during one of the episodes, he'd kind of recently broken up with his girlfriend, and Ellis James described it as the darkness of Robbins. And so a year or so later, John Robbins wrote a show and took it to Edinburgh called The Darkness of Robbins, and he won Best Show.
Wow.
At the Edinburgh Fringe.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really
That's
cool.
so cool. And what's really cool about that podcast, one of the things that I both love and hate you for, is that you got me into that podcast, and then 2 weeks later they had their final episode.
Yeah.
So they talk about very current stuff, what's in the news today. So to go back in time doesn't really make much sense.
But equally, I think there's still value in it.
Yeah.
There's something called being a retro oneer. So if you go back to the first one and listen to them all, then and I've done that. And
I've done that with a podcast called Stuff You Should Know.
Okay,
just
cool.
to try and learn loads of stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't retained any of it. But yeah, it was, just as interesting. But that's enough about other people's podcasts. Let's focus on ours, shall we?
Well, absolutely, yeah. But no, I think you're right. I think it's good to kind of know what's out there, and ultimately, I love the idea of people perhaps going to work or doing the housework or whatever, and listening to us and hopefully finding out a little bit more about comedy and about music, and we'll see how we go.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Get in touch on comusicianpod@gmail.com.
And I already know of one person that's going to listen, hopefully to more episodes, but definitely to our first one. And he's a Bobby.
He's a Bobby?
A Bobby. Police officer.
Right, okay.
Just in case you didn't get that.
I thought that's what you meant, but I was like, why?
I'm just really hoping.
Do you mean Rich?
I do mean Rich, yeah.
Good.
And I'm just really, really hoping that he's going to be next to somebody in the car and go, you know what? Let's kill the radio for a minute. Let's turn it all off. Let's go grab ourselves a coffee and let's just listen to Comusician for half an hour. Screw all the 999 calls. Let's just sit here in our car and just.
We won't mention his surname in case he actually does that, and it's
100%.
a travesty for the funds that the British taxpayer pays. But
just a shout out to our first listener right there. Yeah. Our first guaranteed listener.
I do love the idea. Actually, I don't know if they're allowed to play podcasts when they've got people they've just arrested in the back, but that would be great. It wasn't me, pal. I didn't do it. Shut up. You're listening to Comusician. Imagine if we repent. If we make a criminal repent and change their ways.
Wouldn't it be the greatest?
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. I really want to get into comedy, lad.
I was with Rich actually, and we were walking down Exeter High Street, and we saw a guy run out of Poundland being chased by security, and he kind of got caught. And I mean, that's a low, isn't it? If you're stealing from Houndland, that is a real low.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well.
It doesn't bode well, no. And yeah, so this security guard was there, and Rich kind of went over, as he was training at the time, but he went over to observe. And the police turned up and said, "Oh, we're arresting you on suspicion of stealing 2 bottles of shampoo." And the guy went, "No, pal, you can't do that. It was buy one get one free." Which I just
true
love.
story.
Yeah, 100%.
That's so great.
Yeah,
That's
mate.
got to be in your set, surely.
I've never said that on stage actually.
That
but-
needs to be a joke.
Yeah, that's
Or
good.
I can have it for my gig in a year.
There you go. If you come to our live show, ladies and gents, then yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, that's Sam's joke.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, cool, man. That's really cool.
Yeah,
And the kind of bit that we're going to do, or try and do, we can't guarantee it every week, but we're going to try and do a little bit of news. So, you know, we're going to try, I think our plan was,
We'll come up with a jingle as well.
we will come up with a jingle. Our plan was, I'll do comedy news as a musician to try and learn a bit more, and you'll do music news as a comedian. And so we both came here tonight, and we've both come here with exactly the same story.
Which, by the way, is an absolute banger.
It is an absolute banger. I've got the article
Excuse
up here, so some of this might just be reading, but I'll try my best not to read it.
Read a little bit and then we'll talk a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Joe Lycett, the comedian, absolute hero, has legally changed his name to Hugo Boss in a bid to take over the fashion empire. The comic took the drastic action in response to the brand taking aggressive legal action against anyone using the word boss in their name. For example, last year, Swansea-based Boss Brewing had to shell out nearly 10 grand defending it in a trademark battle.
That's a lot of money for a small brewery.
Right,
money.
exactly. Yeah. So Joe Lycett said, no, not having it. And it's more than likely to do with his comedy show that he runs every year, and it's probably be a massive part of that. But he's now branded himself and legally changed his name to Mr. Hugo Boss. What do you make on that, Fitz?
So I've gigged with Joe, and
Have you?
He's phenomenal. Phenomenal. Superb comedian.
I didn't realise you were at that level.
He deserves. Oh well, I'm not at his level anywhere near, but I've been fortunate enough to kind of share the stage.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks, mate. Yeah. But yeah, so he is properly funny, like Funny Bones, one of those people, and he's kind of been on a bit of a one-man crusade almost. I think he's got a show on BBC, maybe on the radio, about kind of trading standards, and he takes
It's a Channel 4 series.
yeah
absolutely. I'm trying to find the name of it. Got Your Back, I think,
Got
is the
Your
name
Back.
of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, he'll go and if people have been defrauded or anything like that,
Yeah.
then he will go and try and get their money back from the banks. And
Exactly, and he does lots of kind of tweeting to big businesses who the customer service hasn't been very good, and he tweets. I remember when it was the Theresa May was still Prime Minister and she was having a bit of a tough time. He just every day would just tweet her saying, "You okay, hun?" So he's brilliant, and I mean it takes some bottle, if you'll pardon the pun.
Absolutely.
They do aftershave, right, Hugo Boss?
Yeah, they do indeed.
Yeah, there you go. Take some bottle. Good.
Very good.
Genius.
Proud of you.
Thanks, man. But it must, that's a big thing to literally change your name by default.
That is a huge thing. 100%.
Because I don't know if you've read the actual kind of the document, but it's you change your name by default, so it means that on any form that you fill in ever, that's your legal name. Do you see his signature as well?
No, I haven't done it. No.
Have a look at his signature, which again we'll tweet when the episode goes out. But it is very, very funny, and yeah, I think fair play.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if it's something I would necessarily do.
No, but I completely get it, because I see the point of trying to, why would a big company care about a tiny little brewery in Swansea?
Yeah.
Like, just be done with it.
I've actually just realised I 100% would do that.
Yeah.
And actually, I wish that I thought of it first. I would definitely change my name to something like that, because not that he needs it, because he's a phenomenal comic. But imagine gigging with Hugo Boss. Imagine being the compere and saying, "Right, ladies and gents, your headline act for this evening, please welcome to the stage, Hugo Boss."
Yeah, right. And then Joe Lycett walks on.
Yeah.
No,
Or
that
he's not,
absolutely
mate. He's literally not called Joe Lycett.
It's
anymore.
very true. Yeah,
His
really good
name
point.
is Hugo Boss.
Do you reckon he'll go back?
I don't know.
I hope he doesn't. I hope he keeps it forever.
The artist formerly known as Hugo Boss.
Amazing. Yeah, that was brilliant. What a good bit of news.
I think that's a great bit of news, and I think fair play to him for standing up for the little guy, as it were.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Should we try a tactic? Just had idea off the top of my head.
Okay.
This could get cut.
Okay.
Should we try and make the news that we give each week a positive bit of news?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like that is
100%.
Like anything negative, let's just cut it off.
Yeah.
Let's not hear about anything bad.
There's enough negative news. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, unless it's funny, and then in which case we'll put it on.
Unless we can make a cracking joke out of it.
So my mantra in life has for as long as I can remember has always been, if the humour outweighs the harshness, then it's fine. So in other words, like, my mates have ripped it out of me for years and years, and most of the time it's funnier than it is harsh, and so it's fine. But if I see someone being bullied, then that's not funny, that's harsh. So yeah, I think that's a fair mantra. On the subject of deed poll, by the way, I don't know if you know this, so my full name's Daniel Fitzhenry, and the surname Fitzhenry is Fitz anything is quite unusual. Do you know what Fitz means?
I don't. When I met you, I was just like, he's got to be German.
Yeah, a lot of people call me Fritz.
Yeah.
Or Fritzl.
Fritzl, boy, he was Austrian, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. Australia.
Australia.
G'day, Fritzl.
G'day, Fritzl.
Just going to pop down the old dungeon. Anyone see my daughter?
There's that positive news.
Oh yeah, we'll cut that.
That's right, she's out.
Yeah, she is. She's probably fine. If you're listening, we love you, Elizabeth, if that's your name. You should probably change it, right? Ironically, by depot. But so the name Fitz apparently means bastard son of. So my surname means Daniel, bastard son of Henry. Yeah, apparently so. But the other kind of fact about it, which I was told, I used to do door-to-door sales, and I remember knocking on an old woman's door and selling her gas and electric. But anyway, she saw my surname and she was like, oh, did you know you can't change your name by deed poll to Fitz something because it's descended from royalty? And I was like, yes, I will take that. I didn't know it, but yeah.
So that fact has come from one little old lady that you were trying to con into buying your product. And
I have told, whenever the conversation or topic of deed poll has come up, or someone's gone, oh, bastard, shut up, then I've mentioned it. So,
oh, nice.
There you go.
Good, man.
Cool.
Well, I'm really happy that your entire time trying to sell people door to door, being that guy that most people slam their doors at.
Mate, a lot of people do that.
And I would too.
Yeah.
That you took away from that one comment that little old lady said to you. I'm really happy.
Yeah. In one week, once I took away £1,600.
From little old ladies.
No, well, some of them were little old ladies. Some of them were. I'm
not judging you. I'm not. You got to make a living.
You have, yeah.
Go out there and do it, people.
It's hard. Door-to-door sales. I don't know if you could listen to the pod while you're doing door-to-door sales, but in fact, door-to-door sales is an industry that's kind of on the decline.
Yeah.
Wherever you go now, you'll see those stickers. Quite rightly, if you're at home, you don't want to be getting annoyed. But yeah, I did it for a long time. What's the worst job you've ever had?
The worst job I've ever had?
Yeah.
Whore.
Whore?
No. So, well, I don't know. I've been a waiter boy. A waiter boy. A waiter man. I wasn't a man. I was definitely a boy. I was maybe just a waiter. Like the greasiest, dodgiest cafe ever. But I think the worst one for me was one of my first like proper jobs. I say proper jobs. I was like 14. Was at like a quad bike place,
right?
Very local to Devon,
very
local to mid Devon.
M5.
Yeah, near the M5. You might know the name. I won't say it out loud. But the guy that used to run that used to get us, like me, 14-year-old kid, either sitting on the back of a quad teaching somebody how to drive it,
wow, or
with a bushwhacker, and I mean like a full-on strimmer with a metal blade on the end of it, cutting down weeds and bushes and things like that.
Wow.
As a 14-year-old kid. No health and safety checks, nothing.
Mate, you couldn't even do that.
And you know what I'd take home every day? A tenner.
A
tenner, mate, until I turned 16 and he upped it to 20 quid.
Wow.
And that was...
How long were your days?
They would start at 8 o'clock in the morning, I think they would, and they'd probably go on until about 6 or so.
Like a proper day?
Like a full-on work day,
Mate.
and I'd come home with about a tenner. Yeah.
So I'm now going to feel really bad because that's quite bad, and I don't mean to like.
It's child labour. That's what that was.
Well, I don't mean to trump your story of woe because that is quite bad.
Trump away, my
but
friend.
But on Christmas Day, God, how old? So me and my brother must have been like, I would have been maybe 15. He would have been 14, and my mum, bless her, was working as a waitress, not in a cocktail bar, but in a hotel.
Yeah.
And excuse me. And she was working Christmas Day, and so it was basically like, well, we'll work Christmas Day as well, you know. So we worked Christmas Day in this hotel that was doing Christmas Day lunches. So we helped with prepping, like cooking loads of food, and obviously washing up and serving and all sorts. You know, we were there the whole day.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, on Christmas Day, we got paid £5 an hour. Which is fine, split in two. So we got paid £2.50 each an hour on Christmas Day. And it's just,
How old were you again?
like a teenager, you know.
Mate, I'm so sorry.
Oh, mate, it was up there with I got a pack of donuts for my 16th birthday.
Yeah.
Because I think my dad forgot it was my birthday on his way to see me, and he happened to go shopping on the way there. But I love your dad and mum. But yeah, so that was probably not my worst job. I don't know what my worst job would be.
Not your best Christmas by the sounds of it.
Definitely
either.
not. No, I've had better.
Oh mate, I'm so sorry, but that's got to be up there as worst jobs because that's the worst outcome as well.
Yeah, it wasn't a good one. What a bleak end to the section.
Yeah, what a bleak end to probably the end of the episode because we're at 46 minutes. We're there.
That's
I would say
that's a strong. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
I've had a great time, mate. Yeah, I've had a great time.
The aim of this was to kind of introduce ourselves and introduce the pod. Hopefully, I mean, we've come up with an idea mid pod. About what the pod's actually going to be.
Absolutely.
So that's quite cool.
I think what we did in this entire episode, and if anybody out there still listening, what we did is we addressed that in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then just
had a chat.
Just had a chat. And that's, you know what, if you don't like it, that's probably what this is going to be about. We're going to have a theme. We're going to talk 10 minutes on this, do a bit of news, and we're just going to have a chat.
Yeah.
So listen in if you like the sound of our voices.
I mean, hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. I mean, the other thing is that we are 100% open to do suggestions. So, like I say, each week we're going to have a theme. So next week's next week's pod is going to be about our first ever gig, and that is as a performer and as like a punter, if you like. But then each week we'll cover a different theme, and we've also going to have special guests. So we're going to have musicians, comedians, and occasionally even comedy musicians who are going to come along, and we're going to find out a little bit about them and what they do. And yeah, if you want to get in touch, guys, please do. We'd love to hear from you.
Do.
What's the best way of doing that, Sam?
Best way is got to be our email.
Yeah,
which is comusicianpod@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Email that and we will reply.
The other thing, small disclaimer, Sam hates me for this. Sam is most likely to see it first, because how many emails have you got in your inbox currently?
None.
Right. Okay.
No, I'm completely up to date, and that's the way it remains.
Okay. Cool.
How many have you
got? Currently about 4,850.
Oh,
mate, it hurts. It does hurt, and I really want to.
That's a good question to ask our audience.
That is a good question. Yeah. When you get in touch,
email us.
When you get in touch, tell us how many emails you've got in your inbox.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you Team Sam or Team Fitz at that?
So I'd like to be Team Sam in that respect.
I'd like you to be Team Sam.
Not in
as
the
well.
tattoo stakes. Although I've got a horror show tattoo, which I'll explain at some point as well.
You will now. Absolutely.
But yeah, so do get in touch. We're on all the socials as well at Comusician Pod. That's Comusician, like co-musician, I guess.
Yeah.
And this has been a lot of fun, so thank you very much for listening.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you very much, everybody.
I'm really looking forward to next week.
Yeah, thank you, Fitz.
Have a nice week.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Comusician Pod. Intro music was Gangster Life by Dirty Blueprint. This podcast was brought to you by Fitz and Sam. See you next week.